versus Lady Prestor.
You shall pay for your insolence.
For Doomhammer.
Oh, hello.
On it. But firstly, I wanted to shout out David for being really active in the Dedigrade Discord channel recently. It has been interesting to be part of the conversations because it has been heated, to say the least. It's been heated and passionate, where essentially David's come in, he's given his view on things, people in the Dedigrade community have hit back at him, and there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of heated debate. But I do think that it's been great because essentially it's been good to be able to get like David's raw thoughts, and it's been good for David to get the raw thoughts of other people in the Ethereum community here to go back and forth on. So I'm just really grateful for him being active in the Dedigrade Discord channel there. But outside of that, I did want to hit on a few things here. So he identified 6 key problems that he considers to be problems in the Ethereum ecosystem. The first one is L1 underinvestment, right? And I'm going to read out each one and then go into my thoughts on these based on his thoughts. So he then has like a bunch of different sections here where he says, you know, what went wrong with this, how it's being addressed, and what's changing. So what he believes what went wrong with L1 underinvestment is that the L1 was under-prioritized in favor of a far future roll-up vision. I will agree with the former and disagree with the latter here. I do believe that L1 was under-prioritized, but I don't believe it was in favor of the roll-up centric roadmap. I believe it was because of all the reasons I listed earlier around the fact that we had other priorities for the L1 besides scaling. Because he's really talking about scaling here. He's not so much talking about the other things like beacon chain, merge, staking withdrawals, blobs, stuff like that, right? So he goes, you know, how it's being addressed right now. We have a reprioritization of the L1, right? We're being more aggressive with it. We want to do a 10 times gas limit increase. We want to do other upgrades to the L1, and that's what's changed. The L1 is back in focus. So I would mostly agree with this. I just disagree with the premise that we didn't prioritize L1 mainly because of the roll-up roadmap. I do think it's because of the other reasons I outlined. Secondly, there's been a product mindset deficiency in the Ethereum kind of ecosystem. That's what David says here. That's one of the problems he identifies. What went wrong? We built for ideals, not users, ignored user experience, apps, and builders. I think that there's like I think I broadly agree with this, but at the same time disagree with some of it. So I do believe that, you know, in Ethereum, we have a tendency to prioritize ideals and ideology over more pragmatic solutions. And that's simply because of the fact that that's how Ethereum culture was formed over the years. But I will say that we haven't like ignored UX, apps, and builders. I think, again, it's just not something that has been necessarily prioritized as much as other things. Because ignored implies that we just basically didn't listen to them at all. I don't think that's the case. I think that they were there, they were being listened to in various different places, but they weren't being prioritized. And that's, I guess, one thing I'm going to keep coming back to, priorities, right? Because it is really about priorities. So how it's being addressed, we're shifting the focus and shifting the priority to that. We're doing things like making it so that the EF and core developers have bridges, have communication bridges between themselves and app builders, right? And then Ethereum is being treated like a product rather than just a protocol. Again, I think that's fine. You know, that's actually something that is obviously an improvement within Ethereum. He also identified a leadership vacuum in Ethereum. Now, I think this is more EF than Ethereum, and he identifies the problem as EF. He said, you know, if the EF avoided directional leadership, no one owned Ethereum's vision. I agree that this is an EF problem. I don't agree that it is an Ethereum problem, because there are many leaders in Ethereum. There are many coordinators in Ethereum as part of like the whole ecosystem. But if we're talking about just the EF, sure, the EF lacked good leadership. Definitely, I can agree with that, right? And then how it's being addressed, obviously, there are new co-directors, co-executive directors, Tomas and Xiaowei, that were appointed, and the EF is taking more strategic responsibility because of this. And then he goes on and says that we had an ivory tower culture problem. You know, we were insular, academic research was disconnected Ethereum from builders and users. I actually don't agree with this that much. I think this is more of a crypto Twitter narrative. the Ivory Tower thing came about from the fact that there weren't clear lines of communication between the builders and users and the researchers. Not because of the researchers doing this on purpose. I think just because of the fact that the researchers were in one kind of area, the builders and users were in another, and there wasn't really a communication bridge between them. I think by saying the term Ivory Tower, it's implying that the researchers wanted to be there and didn't want to talk to the users and builders. But I think that's completely wrong. I think they did want to do that. There just wasn't anyone taking ownership of that and becoming that kind of communication bridge between those two parties there. And this is being addressed by, again, a shift in culture at the EF and the kind of wider Ethereum organization, the wider Ethereum kind of community, in order to increase the communication lines there. Another problem, L2 fragmentation. Again, like, this is a problem that is being addressed for multiple years now. It's not anything kind of new, and it's not anything that hasn't been being addressed. So I think that, like, David bringing this up as part of, like, something relatively recent and something that we're only focusing on recently is just completely wrong. It has been a focus and a